Okay, let's unpack this. Forget stocks, forget crypto for just a second. Imagine an asset class that some of the world's savviest investors are quietly accumulating. Something absolutely fundamental that most people don't even think of as, tradable.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is we're talking about water, but specifically water rights. So not buying bottles or building a reservoir yourself, but owning the legal entitlement to use water from rivers, lakes, or maybe underground aquifers.
And here's where it gets really interesting, right? These rights are being treated more and more like, well, traditional assets. The sources you shared show how they can be bought, sold, leased, even traded, just like real estate.
Exactly, just like real estate or mineral rights. It's becoming a market. Now, this isn't happening everywhere universally, but it's definitely a significant and, growing market in places like the United States, Australia, parts of Africa too. These regions often have established legal frameworks already defining water ownership and use.
Okay, so given how essential water is, especially with increasing scarcity,
Yeah.
why are these rights becoming so incredibly valuable? What does controlling the right to use water actually mean in practice?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's really about securing access to lifeblood resources. Water is just non-negotiable for agriculture. That means food production, obviously. It's also crucial for industry, for energy generation.
Yeah.
And in areas facing severe drought, control over who gets to use the available water. Well, it isn't just economic. It can determine the very future viability of communities, ecosystems, everything.
That makes sense, complete sense. It's control over a fundamental necessity.
Yeah.
But, when you hear billionaires buying water rights, it sounds totally inaccessible, like way out of reach.
Yeah.
Is there any way for, say, you, our listener, to get even a kind of toehold in this?
Right, you don't necessarily need $1 billion. That's a misconception. And the sources actually point to some emerging avenues. One is fractional investment platforms. Think of it like owning a tiny slice of a really valuable property, right? But instead, you're owning a portion of a water right portfolio. It's an attempt to sort of democratize access, allowing smaller investors in.
Okay, fractional ownership. Interesting. Any other options mentioned?
Yeah, another common route, maybe more accessible for some, is through exchange-traded funds, ETFs, focused on the broader water ecosystem. Now, these typically don't own the rights themselves per se, but they invest in companies involved in water infrastructure, purification technologies, delivery systems, basically the businesses that manage and utilize water. It's investing in the supporting structure.
Got it. So fractional platforms, maybe, or these water-focused ETFs. But this whole concept, especially the rights themselves, it sounds incredibly complex and, really localized.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where the complexity highlighted in your sources is just crucial. You have to understand this. Water rights are highly dependent on hyperlocal laws and regulations. It varies wildly. For instance, in the U.S. West, the system is often based on prior appropriation, which essentially means first in time, first in right. So whoever historically used the water first gets priority during scarcity.
Wow.
Whereas in other places, like maybe the East Coast, it might be riparian rights, which are tied to owning land actually bordering the water source.
Wow, okay, so it's not just I own water, it's tied to specific locations, historical use.
Okay. Yeah. And those laws dictate everything.
Yeah.
How much water you can use, when you can use it. And crucially, even if you can transfer or sell that right, it's not always possible. Add to that geography, unpredictable climate patterns, shifting political landscapes, and you see why it's definitely not a simple investment. This isn't a short-term trade, not a quick flip. It's a long game play, tied to really fundamental resource dynamics.
So ultimately, is it fair to frame this as basically a bet on future scarcity, an investment in scarcity?
I think framing it that way is pretty accurate, yeah. As water stress increases globally, which it seems to be doing, securing access or investing in the complex systems that manage water becomes potentially very valuable. Some people definitely see it as a fundamental, almost a foundational asset class for future-proofing a portfolio, a blue-chip bet, perhaps.
It really does make you rethink traditional asset values, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Consider the potential value of a secure water right in, say, 20, 30, 50 years. Compare that to other assets.
Yeah.
Your source ends with a really powerful, almost stark thought that when the taps run dry, water transitions from being just a commodity or an asset into something truly, priceless.
Priceless, yeah. That perspective is certainly worth mulling over. What does that ultimate value mean for how we think about assets and access really in the future?